It's in place, obviously, of our dinner meeting, but we're glad you're here. And we also have people who are online because we're live streaming. We can also they can also text or call in questions, so that if they have questions over what we're dealing with, they can speak and vote and everything else that they would like to do as well. We're going to start with the word prayer, and then we'll go ahead and have our August moderator, well, December moderator, I guess it's still November, but come up and give you any stuff that we have to resolve and deal with. We have some other people from boards that can chime in and give you any insight or input to answer questions that you might have as well. So, and if you don't have the information, Debbie's passing them around. Budgets, nominations, all those type of things are forthcoming. So, Lord, thank you. What a gracious Savior, what a gracious God. We are so appreciative of what you've done in our personal lives. Lord, we can't thank you enough for a place reserved for us in heaven. Lord, thank you for that sacrifice in the cross, that we are the blood-bought church of the living God. It's like, wow. And we want to be faithful with everything that you entrust to us. And so we thank you for each soul. We thank you for those who have stepped forward and said yes to nominations. We thank you for the finances wherewith we minister to the community and literally to the world through many of our missionaries. Lord, we are coming with thankful hearts, blessed beyond measure, and appreciative of a God who loves us so much. Be with our meeting now as we make decisions and as we look to you for guidance, Holy Spirit, because we ask it in your name, Jesus, our Savior. Amen. Randy is our moderator, and he's going to conduct the meeting. And do we have floating mics? This one? Can this be a... Huh? Press and hold. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Do you want this to be a floating one? Okay.
If it floats, I'll be real impressed. That's
Whoa.
Well, I don't want to make anybody feel jealous, but today is our Thanksgiving Day turkey. So when I left, the turkey button popped. So when I get home, I'll start tearing it apart. I put it on last night low. So,
Sure.
But so I will be smelling turkey today, and it's always a fun time. Our annual business meeting. I always wonder after we eat and eat and eat, does anyone really pay attention at the business meeting? You know, but we always get through it. So. As you know, 2020 has been an unusual year. Beers have grown long, you know, and they continue to grow. We've been challenged with trying to get people together. I mean, with
Yes.
Social distancing, COVID, and all of that. And so the first item that I'm going to offer for you is our slate of officers, church officers. And as you see, there are still some positions that are vacant. Normally we have about 5 advisory board members at large, and I guess we haven't got those yet.
We haven't, yeah.
So
They're yet to come.
So if you, again, we do this again in January where we have another, our annual meeting, and so at that time, hopefully we'll be able to appoint some folks to the advisory board member at large. The officers are remaining the same, and I thank everyone who is willing. I guess I said yes. I'm on here, so I guess I said yes, right? Laura Stone has been our long-term church clerk, and she understands the process really well, so it's always great when she says yes again. Same with Jan as treasurer and Wendy as financial secretary. Makes our job easier on the boards when we have consistency and people. I'm not going to read all through it, but you'll see that there are some that look highlighted. So under deacons, I see Ken Schaefer is highlighted, so he's starting a term. And Carol Thum is starting her second term. I think all of Christian Ed is highlighted. Is that, it looks highlighted. It's just darker. But we do have a couple of people that are coming on board. And you'll see that we have child evangelism still as an opening. And I mentioned those just so that if you're thinking about how you might be able to serve the church, and that might be an area of interest. And if you have questions about what being an advisory board member at large is, feel free to reach out after the meeting or sometime, because again, our goal is to use that as a spot for people who are new to a board and want to learn a little bit more, and it gives them a chance to serve. One of our 2020 members, I saw his wife and I said, here's your chance. I don't see him out here, so I'm going to look, but I said, here's your chance. You haven't been to a meeting yet. This is the last one of the year. You could make one. I guess my plea did not work. Very interested in being on that large, and for whatever reason has not made a meeting, but we may look at and say to him again sometime, hey, how about coming on board with us? So this is the slate of officers for 2021, and again, we'll be talking about it again at some point in the subsequent year as we add advisory board members at large. So what we need to do is to get a motion to approve this slate of officers.
And before you make a motion, one of the names that didn't make it on was Justin Held's going to be on Deacon Board for a year.
Okay.
So
All right, so
if you
add Justin
want to write him in,
as a write-in candidate.
he'll
No.
be a write-in candidate.
So Justin Held is added to the Deacon Board. Okay, thank you for that clarification. And I saw, yes, a question? The 1-year term? Well, there's some that are 3 years too.
I think by and large they're 3-year terms. I think there are some concessions if person goes on for a year or something like that. So I mean that does happen.
No. So except for the one that says filling an unexpired term, then
Correct.
that would be correct. Okay, so we just clarification on those then. Is that good? Any other questions before we get a motion to approve? Okay, do we have a motion? I thought I saw a hand. Tony, a second. Lee, thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to approve the slate of church officers? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of the motion, signify aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Before I have Jordan come up to do the budget, I'll just go through, since I chair the missions committee. There's a separate handout, which the missions breakdown, if you will. There's some small changes, but there are some, in some ways, significant changes too. So we wanted to highlight that. One of the things that normally in the budget, we always had a number, and we still essentially have that number in mind. A few years ago, we decided to up the missions budget, if you will, to 60,000. See what sort of giving and how close we came to 60,000. And with that, we changed some percentages around. So you might have, as a missionary, got a lower amount percentage-wise, but at 60, you'd have gotten a higher amount. Well, lo and behold, our giving did not reach 60,000. So it's an artificial number, really. It's a good goal. We reverted back. We're keeping it, again, about 40,000. Our giving this last year and the previous year has been somewhere between 35 and 40,000, I believe, is the giving. And so the number doesn't really make a lot of difference in the sense that we want to get to 40,000 or 50 or 60, but the percentage breakdown then is based on what actually comes in. And we've been debating about that for years. Should we put a fixed dollar amount, a percentage? So again, if we get in 10,000 and you're supposed to get 15% based on this, then that's what you're going to get based on the giving. And so Again, there are some changes. I think one of the most significant ones, if you remember, we no longer are supporting Camp Judson directly. And so a camp has not been identified for support quite yet. The deacons are going to choose one camp, much like we support a Camp Judson. One camp would be identified to receive 15% of our missions budget. This is our newest thing, 20% to a category we're calling mercy giving. The deacons and missions committee kind of agreed to utilize this. It'll be escrowed during the year, and not that we can't spend it, but essentially it's meant to go to the end of the year. And then recommendations, the missions committee would look at what money is there and make recommendations to the deacons of how best to use it. Our thought was we would use that money to support our already existing missionaries and mission projects before we'd go out and find a new one. This year we have made recommendations to the deacons for this escrowed money. We didn't have a mercy category, but this year in doing some of that, we had the same exercise, if you will. We're looking at some escrowed monies, and we've made recommendations, and at the end of the year, then monies will be spent of some of those escrowed. The 15% is consistent. Lynette and Brian Smith, who are now in the Dominican Republic, they are actually ministering to Haitians who are immigrants to the Dominican Republic. So they're getting 15% of our missions budget planned. The Carlsons, the Dieselbergs, and the Chettys have been long-term missionaries, Spain, Thailand, and Lebanon. When I was doing the little thing on missions, I noted that the Chettys are the only missionary in an Arab country, so that's something that we're involved with and very well, and we've been dealing with them for a long time, I think. Pregnancy Center has been 6% of our budget for as long as I've been on missions, and a plug for the tree in the back. Our giving tree is meant to assist the Pregnancy Center above and beyond what we give in our missions budget. And the last couple years that we've done it, they've been overly impressed with how generous and giving this church has been. Deacons Fund, again, consistent 6% that goes to helping the deacons utilize monies where needed. Release time, Justin Gaines from our church is responsible and in charge of release time, so 4%. 6% is targeted for the Crawford County Christian Academy scholarships only. So if we have people from our church, children that are going, formerly known as Calvary Baptist in Meadville, so it's now called Crawford County Christian Academy. And so 6%, and again, every year we evaluate that to see if there are children from our church family attending. 1% is for media ads. It's been a few years, I think before Easter one year, I believe it was before Easter, we took out an ad in the Meadville Tribune, a fairly large ad. So we do escrow that money if in case something comes up. Mission outreach, again, is to assist the missions committee. We do have Backyard Ministries, and I don't know how many of you have heard of it or how much we've promoted it, but we do have it. We have helped some of our church members, I think even non-church members, with some essentially help around their house, doing some things. We do more, but amazingly people seem to help them without our needing to set up something organized or formal. 6% goes to Samaritan's Purse. A few years back, again, we pulled out of One Great Hour Sharing and some of the other American Baptist giving. And Samaritan's Purse, as you know, does a variety of things. But we added Samaritan's Purse for the disaster relief, much like One Great Hour Sharing did. They do a lot of international development stuff too, so they're very comparable. Just their philosophy or they're very clear on their mission. We did add Camp Venango. Camp Venango has been in existence for a long time, and it used to be $10 to send a kid. I think it's up to 25 now, something like that. And as we discussed it, that was one that folks had some interest in making sure that we supported, and not really understanding their budget needs, and again, the fact that they do charge a little bit. It's a small amount that we added. We did 5%, which has been consistent Christian training / ACTS. ACTS is the predecessor of the Church Leadership Institute, CLI. We've had church people go through CLI and ACTS, and we're leaving it open so that if we have a church member or someone that is endorsed by the deacons to get Christian training, that would be appropriate. Then we would have money being again taken. And again, a lot of times, depending on if they have a monthly amount that they have to pay, or it might be after a couple months, we then make pay for their tuition, that type of a thing. So that is the missions budget, which is or the missions percentage breakdown is part of the budget. So I don't know that we ever get a separate motion to approve that, but if somebody wants to make that motion, I'd be happy to entertain a motion to. The simple answer is yes.
Yes.
Yes. I don't know. Oh, yeah. So the online question is there any particular camp in contention? Last I knew, there were 3 being looked at. Am I correct, Rod, still?
That's correct.
So there were 3 being looked at. Help me, Kristen. Slippery Rock, WLD Ranch, and Edinburgh Camp. Those 3, we've had, I shouldn't say we, because I've done no work on it, but the deacons and deaconess have done some vetting of those camps.
Maybe 4, because I know Miracle Mountain came up in one of the conversations too.
So Miracle Mountain, that's one I hadn't heard recently.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but yeah, so that again, we'll be looking for direction from the deacons really on that. Again, it's easier for us to provide support to one camp. We always have scholarships too, so that there
Right.
might be ability to use some of the scholarship money if somebody wants to go to one of the camps that's not getting a % of the missions budget. That's something that could be entertained also. Okay, any other online I forgot we're online today, so that's neat.
And if there's any questions about the amounts, because there always are, the percentages, if the person that has the question would like to get on the mission committee, then they can
help shape
they can
the
help
direction.
shift that. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. We encourage questions, but we also make note of who made them. So no. Okay. Let's get a motion then to approve. Thank you, Teresa. I assume that's a motion. Do we have a second? Thank you. I can't see you, honestly. Thank you, Linda. I'm glad you said. It's not good in front row, and I'm having to say I can't see you.
Well, you only got one eye, so
Let me
we
do it. Wait.
understand.
No, I still can't see you. I can see your mask.
Teresa.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions on the missions percentage breakdown? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, signify aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I always forget to mention that if you oppose, you're automatically added to the mission committee. It's simple.
Yeah.
All right, with that, the other part of our show today, is it a show, is to get the general budget out and approved also.
Well, not to delay this, Randy, but should we discuss parsonage first?
Sure.
I mean, if they pass this, they sort of pass of the parsonage
yeah,
because it's in the
Well,
budget.
since it's part of the budget, go ahead.
All right, fair enough. All right. I don't know, and I don't know if someone from search committee wants to. Randy, anyone? We're going to start with parsonage because that comes up later in the budget, and the search committee and the trustees feel that, as well as the deacons, feel that it's very important to have the new pastor live in our community and be part of the community. And one way to really make that a more doable option is to have a parsonage and provide that for them. We've had, I think, 2 pastors in a row now that didn't live in the community, and it didn't really deliver maybe the way that we had wanted. So we are coming to you, I guess, asking for a approval for a parsonage. We're looking, the upper range of that would be $169,900, but I mean, that's an up to amount, so there's going to be, a possibility it'll be a little less expensive than that. We would not, we would of course look to finance that. So I guess we're coming to you first with a motion to approve a parsonage and approve that up to, that 169.9 amount. Yes, Ken, questions?
All right.
Motions. All right, cool. Let's just go right to motion, huh?
All right. Yes, and your second?
Just-
Well,
Yeah,
let's,
fair enough.
since we have,
Absolutely. Yeah.
well, wait, when we have a motion on the floor, we need to get a second first before we have discussion. Is there? Okay. So we have a,
Okay, so I just want to make sure the amount is right on, sorry. I don't know where to put
Yeah,
this
that's
at.
good, that's good.
I was just making sure this is line item 68 specifically, correct?
That would be the down payment.
Okay,
Uh,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. Down payment on that. 42, give me a
Sure, the
second.
math, you're
This-
correct. The math doesn't add up. We're
it's
we're looking
210,
we're looking
right?
at things. That line would also include, closing costs on the loan or something like that.
Okay,
You're right.
yeah,
you're right.
because-
20% of 170 is actually 34,000, not the 42 that you
Right,
see
which
there.
would be 210. Okay.
So
Yeah, I
there's
was
more to
curious.
that line than just the 20%.
Okay.
that was your question? Okay. Yeah, and that's probably a good clarification that the down payment or some down payment was discussed and then finance with the intent to try to look at our finances going forward and then work through that, so.
Ask your questions, because
And anything,
done.
Tim?
Tim?
So the question was, who's going to be in charge of purchasing the property, and then does the new incoming pastor have any say in the selection? Answer to the first question is the trustees would have would appoint a committee or ask the moderator to appoint a committee. That's a lot of work. And then to the second question, no, we would look to have this in place during the hiring process. That would be, part of it is to open the opportunity for a young pastor. Maybe Pastor Rod brought up the example that when he came here, he didn't have the financial means to purchase a house, and if we didn't have a parsonage at that time, he wouldn't have been able to come. So we're not so much concerned with them picking their own house as having something available for them.
And that search committee certainly looked at that issue. We've heard from various people about the fact of some people like to choose their own house, have their own whatever, but we're looking at it, or looked at it more from the standpoint of, hey, you want to come and minister in our community and we're giving you a house, where's the downsize? You might not have the color curtains you like and you can make that change yourself. So it was something certainly that was looked at. Again, trying to, Tony? The other thing, it was noted that we're the only church in town currently that does not have a parsonage, so it seemed like other churches, and at one time we did, so, but it, again. Right, yeah, well, that one, yeah. They still theoretically have, it's all in ashes, but, yeah.
So the question is, for the benefit of online people, thank you for joining us today. Hi. Glad you're joining us online. It's harder for you to ask questions. So the question is the church responsible for taxes and utilities? One, because it's a parsonage used for ministry purposes, there are no taxes. Just like our church building, it would be tax exempt. As far as the utilities, that's probably not in my budget, is it? Yeah, it is. So yeah, we've budgeted for us paying utilities. Just because it's budgeted doesn't mean we're necessarily going to do it. That could come out in the negotiation with the new pastor. But we have planned for us paying utilities. That's line 65 later in the budget. So. Yeah. Okay. So there was some insight from Tony for our online folks that when we had a parsonage previously, the church paid for all the utilities.
Yep.
Yes. I would think so. Bob's question was if the pastor, lives in it for a while, then moves on, buys his own house, renting it would make us lose the tax exemption. I would think so. I think that's more of a question I would answer if that situation arose. What we would do with it if he moved out.
You adjust your rent based on that fact. If chances are good that it's not using for potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. If he's not using it and we can't meaningfully rent it, it could be a liability.
And it could be sold if it's
Yeah.
if all else we could sell it also.
Yeah, that's a very legitimate concern because houses aren't necessarily cheap to own, and that could become a money pit. We're hoping to buy something a little nicer, so we're not dealing with an old home, utilities, constantly replacing roofs and water heaters and things. But I think we feel that it's really important to have this now to maybe have a young pastor come in, and to have that as an option, just like it was for Rod, and future expenses, future potential scenarios like that where it's just sitting vacant. I guess we'll be prepared to we'll try to deal with that when it happens. I agree. It could Bob. It could happen. Yeah, Judd. Yeah. We don't want to exclude anybody from it. Obviously, when we find a specific house, we would come back to, congregation with that. And any, I mean, things may have to change. Obviously, I'm making some assumptions here when I put the budget together. Numbers might have to change. So we're not looking to get your approval today and then run off and buy a house and not tell anyone. Okay. All right. Sure.
The priority rationale for it is we want to start looking for a pastor, and we can't put anything online to tell them what's going on until we know what's going on. So, I mean, it's a world difference between saying the church would provide a parsonage versus the church won't provide a parsonage. I mean, that could be a major criteria in a pastor's decision to come. And I'll go one beyond the young pastor concept. I know I was good friends with Jim Callender, and he had turned 60 and didn't have any money at all to buy a house. He lived in a parsonage all his life, and so if you look up lawn bubble, um, that's how God provided the money for them to buy their house in retirement. There's a lot of pastors, including I have a friend up in Erie, pastor. They lived in parsonage all their life. They have no, I mean, they have no ability to purchase a house because there wasn't enough foresight. God had private, but a seasoned pastor might not have the wherewithal to buy a house. Is my point. So it's not just a young pastor, but there's a lot of people that could take advantage of it. And one of the issues that, of course, came up even when Pastor Phil came was, I mean, Barb and I literally took he and Pam around to houses in the community, and we literally looked at them with them, and I mean, what do you do? I mean, I suggested they rent for a while, see if something came available, but when you find yourself in that dilemma, all of a sudden you find a house in some other community, and your kids are in their choirs and they're doing their skits with their school, and all of a sudden you're divorced from the community where you're supposed to minister to, and so if we have a house, that at least allows them however long it takes. If it's a year and a half before something comes on the market that they like, well, they've got a year and a half for parsonage, now they can buy it. Now we have to decide after that year and a half what to do. But again, if you have a assistant pastor, well, they could take advantage of the house. If you don't, there's the option of rental in there. There's also the option of reselling it, saying, okay, well, that went well, we'll try it again. I mean, all kinds of options there. But we do have that dilemma that if you hire somebody and they come into town and they don't find anything, like, well, I got to have a place to live. So they end up buying a place and who knows where. So, and I don't know that we're going to have an easy time finding a place.
No, I was going to say that. Yeah, if you have any inside knowledge of a house in the community that the trustees committee should be looking at, that'd be helpful.
Is there a backup plan if the church is unable to secure a property in Cambridge Springs, and they want to know if you're asking the question if we could have a floating mic?
Sure.
Yeah, we meant to have a floating mic.
We do
kind
have
of
a floating
abandoned that. And floating mic for discussion, too. Yeah, so the question is there a backup plan if we can't find a house that meets that criteria? We didn't really discuss one, just being honest. But I think we're
we'll be
trusting the Lord
looking.
that there is something that we'll be able to find in a reasonable amount of time.
We'll be looking who lives in town that has an extra bedroom or two. Yeah. To answer the question, I guess if that situation arose, if we start getting, months and months into this and we can't find a reasonable house, we might have to look at something that needs, fixed up. We're not looking for a fixer-upper now, but that may, be a route we have to go, or we reconsider the plan. Tony, and can we get the mic over to Tony, please?
Testing. The pastor does have an extra bedroom, so.
We had also talked about, and I know we talked the idea that if we can't find a suitable house in Cambridge Springs, there are lots that are for sale. We could buy a lot and we could actually build a house. So that's an option. That's something that we didn't really want to do, but that was our plan B. Remember, I think we just,
Yes.
in passing, you brought that up about lots and so forth. And I said, so that's an option too. So that would be our plan B if we can't find, I think there are a lot of lots in Cambridge Springs that are for sale. We could plausibly build a house, probably for that same amount. Maybe it might be a little more, but there's a possibility. So I think that would be our plan B. So does that answer their question?
Probably.
There's a delay. They're not going to hear what
Oh,
you just said
okay.
for like 30 seconds. So we'll move on unless they have further questions there. All right.
Well, is there any further discussion on, because the motion is to go forward with the, get the mic,
It needs an airplane. Sail it
a
over.
drone, we need a drone to deliver it. How do you drone?
Can we
I
order
should make them come stand on stage and be on camera too. Go ahead, Judd.
Kristen was wondering about, and I was too, wondering about range.
Yep.
Okay, and I personally just want to make a suggestion that, yeah, I know Phil's place is what, 6, 7,
8 miles,
7,
7 or 8,
7-ish
yeah.
miles away or something. That was a little farther than we wanted, but I just want to make a suggestion that the next pastor, family, whatever, may not want to live right in the heart of town. I would make a suggestion that we at least be flexible enough to say, let's expand our search to maybe outside of town, a couple miles or so, because that's still Cambridge Springs. So. Yeah, which basically gives you, a couple miles radius or whatever.
Yeah, for those listening, Tony said we wouldn't go any further than Cambridge Township, and that's what was discussed. I mean,
Thank you,
the whole
Kristen.
issue of the living locally is the ministry issue, and that's something that I think we talked a lot about with search committee, is that when you're 7 miles away, doesn't sound that far away, but if your kids are going to school in another community and you're part of that other community, it's out of your way to really come do your job, and that's what we're trying to prevent or to encourage. Your job is the community here, so.
Or another adjacent township is still like a Cambridge address, right?
Yeah,
I mean, because we're Rockdale, which is Cambridge address, something like that.
yeah. You want to repeat?
I'm just saying, I think we ought to try to be flexible there.
Yeah, we'll be flexible with that and give. I don't. We'll probably start by looking in the borough, and if nothing comes up, we'll start by looking, within, a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles. I mean, if I'm remembering the school district map and the the 16403 map correctly, there are parts of it that are like really like almost as far away as Enbro. I mean, they're like
Casalago is.
I mean, I
part
live
of-
in Woodcock, and you go a couple miles north, and you're in 16403, because of the way it kind of reaches down there. So we'll try to keep it close, but also be flexible. I mean, we're not going to restrict them, straight to the borough.
Right.
Are you content with your house? Oh, okay, no.
Yeah.
Make me an offer. Actually, wait, I know what the offer is. A motion to buy my house. All right, that didn't go anywhere.
So again,
Ken-
if you know of any
Ken has a
place.
question. Just
Ken.
turn your mic on.
All right. For the budget. All right, we have a motion, a second. A question has been asked to be called, so I will do so. All in favor of the motion for us to pursue a parsonage and details to follow, signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. A lot of good questions, both online and in person, and we'll go on to the actual budget then.
Well, thank you all for that. All right, so turning to your budget. The beautiful thing about Excel is that it lets you automate calculations and tasks. It also lets you automate your mistakes. So let's get this out of the way early. The staff budget somehow got copied over from your previous, wiping out the raises we gave last year. What you see in the 2021 budget line is all of those are like last year's numbers or 2 years ago numbers. So if you have a pen, I can read them off to you. You can come look at them. But all of those numbers should be 3% higher, with the exception of lines 1 and 2 for the pastor and the new pastor. So I apologize about the mistake. That's my bad. If you're okay with those numbers multiplied by 1.03, then we can move. I'll let you think about that while I discuss line 1, pastoral ministry expenses. This is Rod's line. We are again asking for a 2% raise, but you see that it's only at $40,000. I was really upset about his leaving, so I wanted to get back at him. No, it's budgeted through May, and then we took it a little bit beyond that because, when you get into payroll and taxes and things, it's hard to be, to the penny precise. $40,000 will let him go through his, hard out of Memorial Day, and then maybe give us a little extra in that line. So that's why that's at 40, even though we are asking for his pay to go up 2%. The new pastor is a range. He'll be, we're looking to hire a senior pastor, and we wanted to put that range, above where the assistant pastor was, but below where our senior pastor is. And then based on qualification and experience, et cetera, he would fall somewhere within those two numbers. So that's, you can actually see the range there kind of listed in the middle of the column. Any questions on what's going on with line 1 and 2 with Pastor Rod's package or the new pastor line? Yes, Wendy. Yeah, so Wendy's question is, we have the new pastor, we provide a parsonage, are we going to take, that package down? We might want to discuss that. I mean, this is in lieu of a housing allowance. Well, when we pay them that housing allowance, they build equity. I mean, that money doesn't just go away. It steps up. So, the number they got thrown around for the last housing allowance, I think it was like 20. But I'm not going to reduce this by 20,000 because that housing allowance, they pay it into their house, they pay off a mortgage, they build equity with that number. If I reduce this strictly by the housing allowance, I'm asking them to buy my house for me. And that's not really a value to them. I'm just forcing their decision. So it would come down some, Wendy, but I'm not exactly sure how much. So yes, if we're, let's say we hire someone for $80,000. Let's pick a number in the middle of that range. If we're thinking we want the final cost to be $80 and we're providing a parsonage, it would come, the house would contribute towards that $80. I just don't know exactly how much. I think initially when we discussed this at search committee, we were thinking it would come down the full 20, but that's not really fair to do to the pastor. Either I really confused you or that made a lot of sense. So either way, if you want to move forward, I'm fine with it. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay.
Any online questions on that? No online questions? Okay.
Larry was really focused on that computer. Reading the news or something. It's budget meetings are always pretty boring. CE board, Stacy prepared this and did a wonderful job. I loved the way she prepared this because it started with mission first. It sort of abandoned the idea of that, while I had $4,000 last year, I'll spend it this year. It was, we're going to do this program and this event and this thing, and those have a cost, and this is that cost. So it really started with the plan first. Did a wonderful job. You'll notice a couple of things. We took what used to be Camp Judson and we moved that to Deacons. We'll discuss that in a minute. We also removed the media and TV line because it wasn't being used. There was no plan to use it. So are there any questions about CE budget? Okay, all right. Moving on. Next page, Deacons. Most of these are pretty much what they've been. Those are programs that are well established and continuing to be used. What used to be Camp Judson, now called Camp. We made a reduction here to 2,000 simply because we haven't gone anywhere close to 2,000 in a long time. And the one thing I'll assure you, if we if we exhaust that number and you still have a kid that wants to go to camp, this church will make that happen, right? Like, we're not going to leave you out in the cold just because we ran out of ran out of our budget. And then we renamed Fellowship Fund. We took the word fund away from it because we have specific funds that you can pay into, like Deacon's Christmas Fund. That money accrues, and then they can use that to bless families in the community. But this wasn't a fund. This is just a budget item. And we didn't, it became confusing for me at least, thinking, well, wait, does this line accrue as we go, or is this just, poor nomenclature? So we renamed it to Fellowship because that's just, that doesn't accrue. It's $5,000 a year. Whatever they don't use doesn't get used. And then everything else is the same from last year. So are there any questions on deacons or what we did with the naming? Excellent. Wow, I wish every year went like this. Trustees, this part's perfect. Let's just move on. No. We bumped up the equipment and property maintenance to $7,000. Dan Vigilone pointed out the importance of taking care of the gym floor. It's one of those things that if every couple years you put $1,000 into, you can avoid replacing it for a price tag of like $30,000. So we're doing more with that. We've also we're putting a little bit of money in there for landscaping. I know the Terrells had asked about that, so that's why that went up. ACS Technologies, that is the new church software that Debbie's already started to use a little bit, and that has some new accounting tools for us. That will be recurring $2,000 every year, but the insight that it gives us and the streamlining that gives us in communicating with our not only our congregants but our guests and our visitors, we felt was worth it. Utilities kind of are what they are. I didn't call it out. Electric, we bumped it down because we're not coming anywhere close to $6,000. And then beneath that are the recurring expenses for the parsonage. So mortgage payments, utilities, etc. Those are the things that we expect that we would pay year after year. And under that parsonage section, again, those are estimates. So. Do you have something you'd like to share with the group? Oh, you know what? You're right, Judd. I blew past that. Yeah, the gas bills have been less as well. So yeah, electric and gas both went down $1,000. So thank you. No, that's fine. Okay, so that ends. If you look at line 67, that's the summation of everything up until this point. The reason we call them obligations is because this is what we expect to spend year after year. There's no one-time expenses so far, which means that next year we expect to spend somewhere around that $272,000, and the year after that somewhere close to that. Next, we have one-time initiatives. These are things we only expect to spend once in 2021. We've already discussed the parsonage a little bit. The mezzanine revision and stage railing, those were actually approved for this year, but COVID kind of hit the pause button on those. And then beneath that, we have a request from the search committee for search fees related to posting jobs and things like that. And then we have a retirement party planned for Pastor Rod. We're looking to cater that so that we can all focus on spending our time with Rod. No one has to run around doing dishes, things like that. So we're not going to cater like everything, but just once in a while, like one party. So, any thoughts on the one-time? Yeah, Linda. Oh, yeah. Head of fellowship would like to cater everything.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion for that? Yeah, I didn't think so.
Let's get a motion on record for the budget as presented. Penny,
Thank you,
second.
Penny.
Tony. Now, officially, we ask questions as we go, but is there any further discussion on the motion to approve the budget before I know our time is winding down here? No pressure, though. No pressure.
Yes. That's a great question. The question
Financial secretary.
is, oh, well, I know the answer too. but
Okay,
I could,
good.
I could have Wendy answer it, but no, she's
We-
she's telling me. So the question for our online folks is, with COVID and obviously fluctuating attendance, are we funding this budget? Are we bringing in the money we need to bring in? And what we've seen is that other than a dip in March when we, very abruptly had to shut down, giving has been very typical. I think the people of this church understand that you're not really giving necessarily to Cambridge Springs First Baptist Church. You're giving to the Lord. And we have some very faithful givers. Yeah, I don't, I've been watching it all year, month by month. They've been very good at sending me reports, and we're doing okay. We will dip into savings if we do the entirety of this budget. I mean, buying a house is pretty expensive. But, if that's why I called out obligations separate from the one time. We're not going to spend $325,000 every year on into the future. We're going to do it next year, and then hopefully not the year after that. So great question, though. Any other questions? Yes, Bob.
Repeat the
Yeah, so the question is, if we have money in savings, would it be prudent to use that rather than take a mortgage? Given the amount we have in savings, I think I'd rather have a mortgage, because actuating this entire plan without a mortgage would leave us with almost no savings. We would feel more comfortable having some in reserve. A lot of places advise having an emergency fund. And the amount of savings we have is actually not that much more than maybe it's like 8 or 10 months of operating expenses. Most places advise 3 to 6 for an emergency fund. So I know we if you come to the advisory board meetings, you hear the dollar amount that's given, and you say, wow, it's a lot of money. But when you look at it in terms of how many months of operation would that give us, it's not really that much. So that was the thought behind going for a mortgage, was that it would leave something in the bank to handle emergencies. Yes, Penny.
right.
Yeah, thinking back to that addition, I mean, we had that paid off in a few years, 5 years. Yeah. Yeah, we paid this off in less than a year, and actually, Bob, when you helped me with the basement, we just did that from savings.
And with historically low mortgage rates, that was the other thought, was that now's the time we can always pay it off, but we're not going to pay out as high of a mortgage cost as we normally in past years would pay with the current rate, so. Okay, we ready?
I'm being told to wrap this up.
All right, well, I can help you with that. All in favor of the budget as,
Online question. Yeah, could we use part of savings for the down payment? Yeah, that was the plan.
Yes. Okay, all right, the budget's been presented. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the budget as presented signify aye. I should say approving. Anybody not in favor? Nay. Okay, motion carries. That's all the business today we have, unless somebody had something else. 30 seconds, 10, 9, 8. Thank you all for coming, and
Thank you very much.
look forward to next year.